Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing yet another movie review for you all, so hopefully you find this one interesting. This movie is a horror film from the United States, English language, released in the year 1999, directed by Daniel Lowatowicz and David Todd Ockirk. This film is called Kolobos. So Kolobos is about a woman who wakes up in a hospital bed. She's been horribly injured. We have no idea how. And so the doctors are trying to ask her questions, but she is not being very responsive. So rewind a period before, and we're going to get an insight into the events leading up to this situation. And so we've got a woman who is released from a mental hospital. She's very disturbed, but it seems that she's on the path to recovery, and she likes to draw pictures as therapy. So she's invited to a house. It's kind of like a Big Brother house where they're being watched, and so they've got to be their most entertaining selves. But she's finding it very difficult to come out of her shell. And the other people that are sharing this house that have also been invited don't really like her because they see her as a bit crazy. But then as the night progresses, very strange things start to occur where the other people think it's the main character that is doing this. But is it the main character, or is there something else that is residing in the premises that is posing the threat? So whether or not that is the case is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Kolobos. The 1990s isn't my favourite decade of horror, and so initially I didn't really think I'd review this movie, but the fact that no one really talks about this film, I thought, well, I'll have to give it a shot. I saw the trailer, I thought it looked fairly interesting. Doesn't have a horrible score on IMDb, so that was another incentive to go out there and watch it, but I just didn't really feel as though this is going to be any good. Initially I thought it was going to be a movie that was going to be a waste of time and not even worth reviewing. So after finally watching Kolobos, I will say that it isn't a very good film at all, but the reason why I wanted to review this movie is because it was a missed opportunity. It had one element to this film that is very hard to achieve, but I thought this movie really nailed that element, but unfortunately the elements that are not as hard to achieve were not really focused on it. So it almost felt like the directors thought, alright, we're just going to put a really absorbing atmosphere in the film and nothing else. And so there's nothing to really complement that really good aspect that the movie has, therefore it becomes an absolute bitter disappointment. So the atmosphere is right up there with the original Pet Sematary, and that's not a light thing to say, because the original Pet Sematary, it's some of the best atmosphere that you'll ever come across. And so this movie poses the same sort of level of discomfort. This is a very uncomfortable horror film that makes you feel as though you need a shower after watching it, because it has the 90s feel, which really helps contribute to that really grainy and very dirty environment. You've got some really nasty gore, and there's a threat in the film that is just really gross to look at. And so it creates disgust, it creates a lot of repulsion, and it just creates a sense of no control, because the story is very convoluted, and the story can work in its favour as far as creating that level of vulnerability from the viewer, but it can also work against it as well, which is something I'll go into a little bit later. But I just really liked some of the kills in this film. It was really nasty, very practical, and so the whole film had a really good template to jump off. But unfortunately, this movie created the cardinal sin, and the cardinal sin is having characters that were incredibly annoying. The acting was horrible because the script didn't allow these characters to blossom into anything special. So you can disconnect yourself from what was going on. And so when you have that really good absorbing atmosphere, you feel as though it's waiting for another positive to really evolve itself, but it doesn't come. And so I thought the characters, I didn't care if they died, so you have no real fear factor for them. I thought the story was very convoluted. On one hand, it can work as a positive because it creates that vulnerability and that loss of control, but it also is very hard to follow. And so I thought as though maybe this is a film up for interpretation, but there's not a lot of room for interpretation. So I just felt as though it got confused with itself, and it didn't really know how to end it in a way that made a lot of sense. And that could have been very deliberate because it wanted to be very surreal, but I just felt as though there was a very sour taste in the mouth. There was no rewarding climax to what was a film where I wanted to know where this was going, but unfortunately those questions aren't really answered. And so there's a certain sense of disappointment in the story, the acting, the characters, and so you have the nasty side of it that just is waiting for something to save it, but unfortunately that never comes. So you have one aspect that's really good, but a certain sense of there's no closure whatsoever because there's nothing to really capitalise upon that, and therefore it just meanders along into a really, really forgettable experience. So it pains me to say it, because this should have been an absolute phenomenal film. The atmosphere is absolutely fantastic, but unfortunately nothing else to go off it. And so I thought the main character was curious, there's a lot of mystery behind her, but I just wasn't sure where these directors really wanted to take this, and so that's the reason why I felt Kolobos was just an absolute bitter disappointment. So overall for this film, going to give this one 2 stars because the atmosphere was so good, but unfortunately everything else is lacking. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.